A very good evening and many thanks for tuning in to Y254. It's the third day of the month of September 2018, and tonight in our political scope we shall be talking about matters corruption. We want to see what has been happening in the country, and we want to dwell on two matters. One, the counterfeit goods that were destroyed last week on Friday, and what has been happening to the DCJ Philomena Mwilu. And with me in studio is two lawyers. I have Julu Okadio with me, and I also have Stanley Nyochai. We shall be talking more of legal affairs here tonight. Keep us company, and remember you could join our conversation tonight by sending us your comments or questions to 22162 is the SMS line to use. Remember to start with the word Y News. Again, 22162 is the SMS line to use. Remember to start with the word Y News. At Murani Hillary at Y254 channel is the Twitter handle, and the hashtag is Y254 updates. Welcome to the program. My name is Dereva Hillary. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome.
Good evening.
We saw for the last 1 week, many things have been happening as far as the war against corruption is of concern, and in this particular case you want to talk about the judiciary. We saw Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu being prosecuted and taken to court because of corruption allegations, and I want to believe many Kenyans are wondering back home, if the judiciary is already corrupt, where do we find justice? I want to begin with you, Stanley. So far, do you feel like matters corruption in our country is being handled in the right way?
Thank you very much, Hilary. For me, when you speak about corruption, there is two things to it. The fight against corruption has two aspects, and I must congratulate the president in one part, and by extension the DPP, who is the face of the war on graft, Nordin Haji. He has been able to recommend a significantly way more number of cases for prosecution compared to his predecessor, who is now the CS for Environment, Keriako Tobiko. We've seen him put in an effort to take cases to court. Whether those cases have translated to conviction is a matter that remains up for discussion, because we see suspects getting arrested and they don't necessarily get convicted. The cases disappear for either lack of evidence, or one thing leads to another and that case fizzles away. So it tends to leave people with a sour taste in the mouth, and you hear stories of whether or not these are public relations exercises.
Right.
So I think Haji still has is only been there for a few months, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But I want to go back to what I said. The fight against corruption has two aspects. There's what we call the impunity, which is what he has been able to fight instantly. What this sustained and concerted effort has done, has returned the fear of God in people, if I may say so. It will now be more difficult for you as an accounting officer. You will require enough pause, or you require to think a bit harder before you do that corrupt deed in the ministry, because you know that after all, anybody can now be arrested. We've had the DCJ being arrested. We've had high-profile persons being arrested. We've had a sitting governor being arrested for murder.
True.
So it is, I think, the impunity that you can do anything and get away with it because you're a big person in government, that has now been put to spell. I think almost everyone is now on their toes. So as far as impunity goes, I think there's been something to achieve. But as far as the entire war on corruption, I think we'll have to wait and see how many of these arrests actually translate into conviction and sentencing.
All right, Okadia, for a very long time we have had communities say our people are being targeted because of ABCD. This fight on corruption is not as it should be. How do you feel so far? Is the fight against corruption being handled in the right way?
Well, Hila, my take will be that I think on the 27th of August this year, we did have the marking of the Constitution. And out of that marking, I think the Constitution 2010 is something to celebrate to this extent, because out of the same, we've seen the new office and independence being stressed in it and every public body that we have. And that's why I think my friend Stanley here can celebrate the effort by the current DPP. However, I'm a bit skeptical to the same, because I think what is nothing has been done before. It's only that his office is different, and his office is mandated by the Constitution to prosecute. So that, I think, we're focusing more on the prosecution aspect. But let's not forget about the Auditor General's office, for instance.
Sure.
Long before the year 2018, the Auditor General's office has been unearthing scams, sham dealings and all that. So we've been having these offices doing the job. But I get back to my statement and say that it's all a fruit of the Constitution 2010. So I think at this particular point is a bit too early to judge on the movement, because again, the fact that someone's name has been mentioned does not necessarily mean that you're going to get the fruit of the activities by the ODPP. Because again, it can be, someone might be arraigned in court, but there's no conviction. But the fact that someone has been arraigned in court does not necessarily mean that the evidence was good enough. Because that we leave it to the judges. Yes.
All right. Now, I want us to get this. Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu was arrested on allegations of corruption. And the question many Kenyans who are really talking about is this what was said we shall revisit? Is this what now we are saying? Maybe if I get your comment, Stanley.
Waswahili husema lisemwalo lipo na kama lipo liko njiani linakuja. The president was very clear that he will revisit what he felt was sinister behavior from the judiciary. For the first time, we witnessed the judiciary having a significant budget reduction that has almost severely crippled their operations. I do not want to impute sinister motive on the part of the DPP. As I say, he's right now enjoying popular support because he's going after corruption in whichever way. I think corruption has become a scourge so much that people want to see justice done by any means necessary. Whether it is arresting somebody, people just want to see action, and Kenyans are happy with him right now. As it comes to the DCJ, however, I want us to put a pause there, because why? This is a constitutional office holder in the sense that she is second in command in the judiciary just after the Chief Justice, so she holds a significantly higher role to play. The law does allow that only the president is immune from criminal liability in the duration of their seat. So the DPP was right in arresting the DCJ if he thought that there was evidence to warrant successful prosecution, which is what he said that he will do. However, that as it may be, there's what the law allows, and there's what we call, I don't know if I may call it soft skills, or the good relations or the respect of independence of these institutions. If we reach a stage where you can arrest the DCJ over what may turn out to be flimsy grounds, then it becomes dangerous political witch hunting, especially of a person of that magnitude. I am not beyond conspiracy theories. I've had stories, and I think we've all seen this on Twitter, people talking about Maraga being 3 years away from retirement. And if the current DCJ is removed, she's likely to be replaced by a lady. And we all know which lady justice is left seated in the Supreme Court. We can Justice. No, there's only one. It's Justice Njoki Ndung'u. And so I do not want to draw conclusions where there may be none. But all I can say is that the DPP has to hold himself to the highest account. He has begun on a very good note. He's arresting people without fear or favor. So let his office not be influenced to politically witch hunt anyone, whether it is a DCJ, whether it is everyone should be given their fair day in court. So I think for now, all I'd say is the DPP enjoys the popular support of the people, so let us give him the chance to do his work. If the DCJ is found to be culpable, well, tough luck. She will have to face the law, but let it be done in fairness. But having said that, again, there is a procedure of the removal of the Chief Justice as is laid down in the Constitution. The same procedure applies to the Deputy Chief Justice. It will have been much easier for the President or for the Attorney General to initiate the appointment of a tribunal. That will have been chaired by a senior justice or somebody who's qualified to be a senior judge, and they would have been able to do that. So the fact that they didn't go that particular way is telling. it's a bit worrying.
What's cooking?
Yeah.
Actually, whatever she's being accused of, most of the things happened like maybe 5 years ago.
It's scary.
So, and the question is, why now?
Why now?
Why now? Okadia, what's your point on this?
I think picking up from where he pointed out, my suggestion will have been the best approach to go about it will have been start off from the JSC.
Right.
I mean, we had some of the commissioners commenting in a manner likely suggests that the meeting on that particular day was not really a meeting.
Right.
You see, it was just called for purposes of cornering the DCJ and so as to arrest her at that particular point.
Right.
Yeah, because the meeting did not go to fruition, and in the sense that the business of the day was not conducted as ordinary. So I think that the best will have, first of all, to start with the JSC, because the JSC has the mandate to receive complaint, look into the conduct of judicial officers, registrars of the court, and also generally just officers of the court.
Right.
So it will be a very awkward situation. Remember I say that in the criminal procedure, you first of all have the arraignment of the accused person. Then you go into trial. Now, as regards the trial, the prosecution will have a day to present its own evidence, which might be attacked by the defense counsel. Now, if the defense counsel argue it out to the extent that whatever the DPP is meant to present is not as good enough as he claims, then that means that there will be an acquittal. Now, what is the situation in the event that there is an acquittal? Because it's a 50-50 thing. The general principle in criminal matters is that one is presumed innocent until proven guilty. It's not the other way around.
Yes.
And already we have a situation where the public court, some members of the public court have already hanged the DCJ. Now, what will happen? How would you reverse their own minds in relation to telling them that now the DCJ has gone through the process and is now innocent? And that's why I think wisdom will have dictated in this particular instance, and use the approach of the JSC, because as rightly pointed out, the Constitution lays out the procedures of going about a DCJ or a justice for that kind of matter.
Yes.
In summary, it is the Chinese proverb that tells us it is only when a mosquito lands on your testicles that you realize you don't have to kill it with a hammer. There would have been other methods of treating the DCJ, as my colleague has spoken about, but we've gone to the process of sending the Director of Criminal Investigations and the Director of Public Prosecutions all the way to the Supreme Court building to arrest the Deputy Chief Justice. That is a high-profile event, and I hope their case is watertight, because I can tell for a fact that the judiciary will not take it very lightly. Yeah, because Hilary, sorry to cut you short, because the other thing that we are going to be faced with, one would like to ask, did the justice who had the petition for purposes of stay and the magistrate before who the prosecution appeared before, were they acting independently or not? Because remember, as he rightly pointed out, this is the second person in command in the judiciary chain. And here you have your boss to some extent appearing before you. Now, would you act independently? So, in law, we normally say that you need to be the Hercules judge. There's the Hercules judge is somehow immune to all these factors. He acts independently and all that. But the question that one might beg is, did they actually act independently? And that, I think, is what he's referring to, that there might be a rippling effect in terms of the whole conduct of members appearing before the bench. And then the other thing is, at this particular point, given that we say that one is innocent until proven guilty, is she still the Deputy Chief Justice of Kenya? Yes. So that means that she can sit in the bench. Now, what will be the apprehension that litigants face if they appear before her?
And maybe this now would beg the question, for the magistrate or the judge who will listen to her case, do you think they will listen to her independently without any other influence? And what will be the result if, assuming she's guilty of her action, what happens to this judge henceforth? Stanley?
It will require a certain level of self-removal or self-emotional removal for you to sit and determine the fate of your superior, because all the magistrates, all the judges, they report to the DCJ. After the DCJ, they report to the Chief Justice as the President of the Supreme Court. So in all fairness, it is right to presume theoretically that all judges will be unbiased. However, these are human beings. They have emotions. They've interacted with these people. The DCJ has been in the judiciary and in the legal profession for a very long time. So as human beings, I can expect they would have a feeling on this, especially in the manner that it has been conducted. You know, I still feel they should have gone the way of the Judicial Service Commission first, and then by way of tribunal, if that was really an issue. Let us go back to KRA. And I want to bring in the case of the governor Mombasa, Hassan Ali Joho. When Governor 001 ran into trouble with State House, that is when KRA all of a sudden discovered that he had problems with his taxes. So I want to say, without fear of contradiction, the KRA is not above reproach. Right. They have proven to be tools of state to be used for persecution of people who are perceived not to be in good books to the government. So again, also the KRA needs to be careful that they should not lose the trust of the people. We are saying kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea, but apparently inategemea watu wengine zaidi. So if Philomena Mwilu, the DCJ, is now in problems because she didn't pay taxes, that was happening 5 years back. She was recently cleared to be the Deputy Chief Justice. So how comes it was not discovered then? It is being discovered now. So for me, it reeks of sinister motive, and that's why I'm saying that the DPP is enjoying the political support and the goodwill of Kenyans. He should not be lost by allowing himself to be involved in whatever may be perceived to be a hurried prosecution or witch hunt or prosecution that is not really straightforward. If somebody has made a mistake, let them be prosecuted, but and let them carry their own cross. But let us not turn it into a witch hunt. Everyone deserves fairness, everyone deserves justice, and that's, I think, the right way to go.
Very true. We've seen people of high profile, when they have allegations or they have cases to answer, they are requested or demanded to resign. Okadia, do you think Philomena Mwilu, DCJ, at this moment, she should step down for the need to continue?
Well, I think that decision, remember that under the JSC mandate, they can actually remove a judge from office.
Right.
Okay. And at this particular point, I think we can only bank on, one, the JSC, two, individual judgment call, which I think we should leave it to the DCJ to actually decide that given the public domain, given that the matter is already in public domain, and she rightly pointed out that the DPP has actually prosecuted her via the public and not via the court.
Right. So
out of that, and remember, I also posed the question, what would be the minds of the people who appear before her moving forward? So that is something that the JSC can recommend, or she can actually take a judgment call and step down. But in stepping down, you see, there needs to be a sufficient reason for you to actually step down.
Sure.
And so far, we've not had any sufficient reasons because she has not been proven guilty of the same. What she can do is to allow for the investigations to continue, the proceedings to continue. Because of the position that he holds, he might form some certain bias approach before the bench.
All right.
But that should not, I mean, it should not be a question one can determine. We just love to leave it to the DCJ or the JSC.
Hilary, allow me to put in some words on that one. We have an English saying that says what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We now want the DCJ to resign. And my people from Mukambani are already making noise tunamalizwa because this is a high-profile leader from their community. True. And rightly so. I say this because the president of the republic and his deputy were at one point suspects of crimes against humanity at The Hague. Yeah. And they screamed and they foul, and they said that they are innocent until proven guilty. And they were elected and they were in office until their cases collapsed for whatever reason that happened. Yeah. So if we allowed that to happen, I think we can allow the Deputy Chief Justice to finish a term, because what we're looking at here is that I'm not trying to sugarcoat corruption or suspicion of corruption, but this is a case of 54,000 shillings in tax.
Sure.
So if you weigh the gravity of the two suspected crimes, I mean, we should apply standards fairly. But be that as it may, I think as Kenya, after 54 years of independence, we need to reach a level of professionalism and a level of democracy where we do things in a particular way. Just the other day we had a cabinet secretary in the UK resigning because he arrived in Parliament 8 minutes late during an answering session, and he was like, that is unforgivable, I need to resign. Another one was found to have misappropriated about 60,000 shillings, which was used as rent. It is that kind of thing. So we need to move to that level of consistency. What we're saying is that if we allow one leader to be put under pressure to resign,
then
like we did with the former Deputy Chief Justice, the Nancy Baraza, who pinched somebody's nose, and she was quickly bundled out of office.
True.
But then you have another one like Imunya who says he'd rather die than, you know, as in, let us be consistent. That is the only way that you can avoid suspicions of political witch hunt. If we say that people need to resign, let them all resign. Right. But let us not have certain leaders pushing for resignation of only particular people because they belong outside the center of power.
All right, I want us to move to another matter. On Friday, President Uhuru Kenyatta witnessed the destruction of contraband goods, and this has been happening alongside other things that have been happening to see that we have a clean country. And you shall remember during his swearing in, he talked of 4 agendas, and people were like, you never mentioned about corruption, and this went on for a while, and people expected to have maybe a fight against corruption being number 1, of which he never said it. So it was like, I'm not saying it, I will do it, and we've seen it being done. So on these matters, looking at one of the agendas, the manufacturing, we've seen the goods that have been brought to the country, they are fake. We saw the expired goods being destroyed. Now my question is, what is the extent of the counterfeit goods? What do they do to our country? And maybe if I could stretch it further to our own manufacturers in our country, because some of these things are being imported. What negative effect do we have in our country? Begin with you, Okade.
The first thing that I would like to look at is I would like to question our own territorial borders in relation to the waters that we have. Part of the zones that we have in the maritime scope is a contiguous zone. Now, under this contiguous zone, what we have as a country, the right that we have is to actually inspection of goods getting into our territorial zone from that contiguous zone, which is normally about 24 nautical miles off the land border. Now, one will ask himself, if these goods are coming in, why are we not looking at it from that particular point, that in terms of the shipment coming in? Now, in terms of land activities, we have bodies like KEBS. I think KEBS, to some extent, one might want to fault it. But needless to say, the effect of this good, there's a manufacturing aspect in terms of profit, in terms of revenue generation, but also in terms of health. Some of these goods are known to affect human health. So I think one might want to look at it there's also environment aspect. So it's not just one-off kind of scope, but it's a multidimensional approach to it. The effect, the rippling effect, is not just in terms of business alone. There's a whole lot more.
Yeah. Stanley, what do you think are the enablers of the counterfeit goods being brought into our country? Is it that we don't manufacture the best, or we have the best but we can't match the market, or what goes on?
I think it's simply greed, and this greed has been enabled by lack of political goodwill to fight corruption. If you take a closer look at these goods that have flooded the market, starting with sugar, you're talking about players at very high political levels. The only reason they can be able to do this, to get this kind of impunity, is because they have, or they are perceived to have, the protection from political elite. So again, it is our own leaders that are barring our our entrepreneurs in the ground. The sugar industry in Nyanza and Western is dying because of the flooding of fake sugar from Pakistan and from Brazil and whatnot. We have not been able to really spur manufacture and industry, because how do you compete? How do you sell a Kenyan pencil at 15 shillings when the Chinese are able to sell pencils right here for 4 shillings? And I'm not even talking about the bringing in of manufactured goods. I'm talking about actual Chinese people in Kenya hawking pencils. How is the Kenyan hawker in Mudhurwa supposed to compete with that? We need to create a level playing. We need to be able to shield our people to be able to compete economically. And it's really unfortunate that instead of promoting the youth to be able to do business, our political leaders are more concerned about political deals with superpowers, China and whatnot, and getting ourselves into foreign debt. And at the end of the day, I don't know if we are really the ones who are benefiting.
Yeah.
There's a lot. We really need to realign ourselves. We really need to consider what it is that we are doing and put the focus and the priorities of the youth first as a country.
All right, I want us to listen into what the president said, a bit of his speech, because this illicit trade is not fair to Kenyan's manufacturers and anyone conducting clean business, because we have debts and loans to pay. We want to achieve our agendas, the 4 agendas. We want to see our country move forward. If we could have that clip for the president's speech.
But we will no longer be blaming junior officers and allowing senior officers to go scot-free. You are responsible. That's why you got your job. Do your job. And if you cannot do your job, step aside. There are other Kenyans who can do it. Na wenzetu, na waomba wa Kenya kwa nidhamu na kwa heshima, wenzetu tusikubali vita yetu kati ya mambo haya ambaye inatuharibia taifa letu na nchi yetu, ambaye inaharibu future ya vijana wetu. Tusikubali tuingize siasa. Let justice be seen and to be done. And let everybody carry their burden. There is nobody, hakuna, mpaka mimi, there is nobody who is above 42, 45 million Kenyans. Sini hivyo? Yes. We should not politicize this war. This war is about the future of Kenya. This war is about our children. This war is about the prosperity of our country. This war is to ensure that we restore integrity, discipline, and honesty in the manner in which we do business in this country. That is what will create confidence in investors. That is what will ensure that the resources of this country are utilized.
So there is the president saying that if anyone is caught on corruption, they don't have to come back to the community and say these people are targeting me, because if you stole on your own. And we've seen what corruption can do so far, and this fight having come this far, we want to believe that we are going forward. I want us to finish with this matter of counterfeit goods. Kenyan's manufacturers, they have suffered for a very long time, and this is the second time I've seen the president destroy contraband goods. We've heard about the sugar, we've heard about every other thing, and of course there's a case going on in the courts of the City Board, the people that were arrested the other day. So this is a very serious thing that has been happening, and we want to see real people taken to court, because actually even the president said they will be going even for the top people, not the junior workers. So my final question would be, do you think the organizations that have been put to fight counterfeit goods are doing a good job so far, Okadia?
I think that to the extent that we find the good being confiscated, it's a step.
Right.
But how much they're doing, that is a different question. But I think it's going back to the whole underlying aspect of corruption. One says that it's a culture that we have as Kenyans. So I think it's also starts with the individuals, because you should ask yourself, by the time I'm going to get this clearance, am I going to approach that officer seeking a favor or not?
Right.
So, because most of these times you find that if you go to these manufacturing plants, they have all the licenses that they're meant to have. They have the KEB standards that they get before they start manufacturing. But they don't really adhere to the standards that they're given by KEB.
Right.
So, one might not really say that it's either KEBS or anti-counterfeit agency that is not doing the work, but it's also the manufacturers themselves. Because if KEBS comes and inspect, and they issue samples, because they normally comes at least I think after a year or so to collect samples of the goods that you're manufacturing. So if you give them quality samples, because you're seeking a test to pass, so you pass the test, but then what you're manufacturing is different from whatever samples you gave.
Like we've been seeing with the beer.
Yes, so it's
that has killed so many people.
Yeah. So there's also, it's a coin. It's a both sides of the coin kind of approach. You can't really say that it's the agencies which are not doing the work, and you can't really say that it's the manufacturers who are also suffering. Because again, we haven't seen the KAM actually coming out strongly to give directions on to how to deal with the situations themselves. So I think KAM, anti-counterfeit agency, KEBS, and any other agency involved should also have an approach where it's a multi-sectoral approach. So each and every person is involved in the same. So that's how we'll move forward to the same. But so far, I think to the extent that we see goods being confiscated, it's a plus to them.
All right, Stanley, do you feel the counterfeiting organizations or the people who handle this, do you feel they have done a good job so far? As we finish,
there's still a lot of room for improvement. I don't want to belabor the points spoken by my colleague. I just want to point out to something that I saw somewhere when the people are being arrested at the produce board as ordered by the DPP, starting with the permanent secretary. You would look at the list. Someone was joking. You would look at the list and I think it was athletics somewhere. keep, and then you'd hear some member of parliament in Rift Valley saying our people are being targeted. Targeted by whom? And everybody in the parastatal belongs to one community. So again, these institutions need to ensure that they're able to do the work that has been given to them. It's very unfortunate in Kenya that we consider parastatals as a retirement job. Somebody comes, loses maybe cabinet seat, he gets recycled into parastatals, and we've had so many parastatals that are now just taking up taxpayers' money and are not able to do the work that has been assigned to them. So I'd like to really congratulate the president, what he's doing, and the DPP. Let them continue applying the concerted pressure against corruption and fighting impunity by causing these high-profile arrests. And as the president has said, they will not only go after the persons who are found to have either brought counterfeit goods or engaged in corruption or built on riparian land, as has been happening, but even now the government officials, even the parastatals, those who have facilitated that or allowed those acts to happen, either through neglect or they turned a blind eye, or maybe they were corrupted as well. Even them, they need to pay for those acts. If any counterfeit goods are found somewhere, a KEBS person must have issued certification. They need to be equally arrested for passing those goods that have then now gone ahead to cause bodily harm to Kenyans.
All right.
Yeah.
So many thanks, and it's a pleasure having you, gentlemen, and for your information and what you've been able to highlight here tonight. Thank you so much. They have been my guest, Julu Okadia. He's a lawyer, as well as Stanley Nyachai, a lawyer as well. And back home, many thanks for keeping it Y254. Continue watching our programs that will be coming up next. My name is Dereva Hilewi. Have a good night.